bated breath for our next guest. He was on my show last year talking about the album Therapy, and we want to talk about that and more stuff with Jim Lee. Jim Lee's on the line. Hello, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Good man, good man. We were sent the single, which comes out on November 10th, a week or two ago. It's called Smile of Elvis. Tell us a little bit more about that, first of all.
Well, I got this album, Therapy, and The Smile of Elvis is a track that's on that. And, it was getting a lot of attention from radio stations, and people were saying, oh, it's my favourite track. The reviews on the album were fantastic when it came out, and it's come out on vinyl now as well. And, it was... the reviews are rave reviews, and it was great, but this one was the one that, as time went by, it was just bubbling up as being the one that people were mentioning. So we wanted to put another single out from the album, so The Smile of Elvis was picked out.
Yeah, well, we thought when we heard the album, it was definitely single material all them years ago, and it was nice to see that you have actually brought that out, because it is, of course, 40 years since Elvis passed away this year. Can you remember where you were when Elvis died?
I can remember it as plain as day. I had a Rolls Royce back then, and I was just pulling up to my flat in London. This is before we had. I was with my wife, and before we had children. It was 1977, and Tony Prince was on the radio, Radio Luxembourg. It was hazy Radio Luxembourg,
yeah.
You know how it was, coming and going.
Swimming in and out.
And Tony Prince said, we've got some terrible news, that the king is dead. King of rock and roll is dead, and it was such a shock. I mean, Elvis was a little bit before my time, to be quite honest. The others in the band, they're 3 years older than me. I was only 16 when I joined the band, and rock and roll was just a bit before my time. It was probably Cliff and the Shadows and then the Beatles, that era when I came in. But it was still a shock, big shock, because obviously he was such a massive star.
Yeah, I think everyone remembers. It's one of those things, isn't it? They remember where they were.
Well, yeah. The reason why I don't write when I'm writing songs. I don't sit down and think. There's no particular way of doing it.
Yeah.
And with Smile of Elvis, two things happened. I was, funny enough, rehearsing for the Robin Hood gig, which we'll talk about a bit later with because it's coming out on some fan footage is coming out on DVD. It's incredibly exciting. The thing is, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I was just rehearsing, sort of, polishing up the guitar playing a little bit, and because on the Robin Hood gig, I actually that is coming out on the DVD. I played guitar and I sang and I spoke to the audience, and I had just a drummer and a bass player. Well, I didn't know those guys particularly well, but they were there and they did a great job.
Yeah.
But when I was rehearsing for it, my son came in and he said, "Dad, turn down. Tea's ready." And I said, "Okay." And I'd seen a program about Elvis, and they were interviewing his family, and it was one of the older members of the family said, the thing about Elvis is that nobody, everybody talk about him being sexy and all this, he said, but nobody talk about his smile. His smile was fantastic. He just lit up the room, man, and he's doing all that, and it showed some pictures of him, and I thought, God, he was the most best-looking bloke. He was the best-looking bloke on the planet.
Yeah.
And he got it all going for him, hadn't he? So when I put the guitar down, I went to go and get my tea, and I was walking away from my guitar and my amp to go into the kitchen. I just sang, "If I could smile the smile of Elvis," and just that, And I thought, wow, that's good.
And that's how it could happen. That's how easy a song could come.
That's how it comes for me. Yeah, it's just I don't sit down to write. It's always been, even back in the day, SLADE days. It was always, it would just come out of thin air, and I don't know how or why that is, but it's the way the creative people are. It's the eureka moments.
You said back in the day when you were making songs, did some of them come to you and you got them recorded and bang, it was done in a short period of time?
Always. You know, were you playing Every Day when we came on?
Yeah. That was the song that my wife walked down the aisle to. Love that song.
Say that again, sorry.
My wife walked down the aisle to Every Day, one of your songs.
Yeah, it's played at a lot of weddings and also at funerals. And the thing is with that, the way that one is for instance, but this this is a bit of a strange one. We came back from America and I got the Merry Christmas melody sorted out, and I got the song, here it is, Merry Christmas, everybody's having fun. And I said to Nod, you know, I need us to work. Nod wasn't keen on doing the Christmas song at all. He didn't think it was a good idea. So Nod did the rest of the band, to be quite honest. But you know, the real rock and roll band, we don't have bloody Christmas songs, you know. So anyway, but we'd had these people round to dinner. And I played them the Christmas song. This is pre-lyrics, but I always had lyrics for the tunes anyway.
Yeah.
So I played them what I had, and I said it's going to be. And I did I got the chorus. So here it is, Merry. So I sang that to them, and they said, "How'd you write all these songs?" And I said, "Well, they just sort of come." I said, "Okay, we've just had something to eat, and we've just had a few to drink. Let's go around the table, and everybody's got to sing something just on straight away." And we went round the table, and it came to my wife, and she went bright red, and she said, "I can't sing it in here." And I said, "Well, why not?" And she said, "Let's go in the other room, and I'll just sing it to you, and then we'll go and sing it to the other guys." So we went in the other room, and she sang, "Every day when I'm away, I'm thinking of you. Everyone can carry on except for we two." I said, "That's good." so I remembered it. I never used tape recorders or anything like that. I just remember. So we were doing the next album, and we were down at Olympic Studios, and I was doing I was writing the next bit, and you know that I love, do you know that I, ready to record, you know, and there was a shadow of I knew somebody was watching me from the doorway, and I turned around, and it was David Bowie, and he said, "You're Jimmy Lee, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh," he said, "you've come to see my band, you know, the Spiders of Mars twice, and I asked for you to come backstage because we both know the promoter, don't we?" And I said, "Yeah, we do." And he said, "But you never came backstage." I said, "I was always tired, or I'd just come back from America." He said, "I don't believe that at all, because I was really shy in those days, and I was just writing every day, kept carrying on with it." And I said, "Look, I can't stand here and talk to you. I've got things to do." And he said, "You know what? Mel's told me about you. That's the promoter, you know, the mutual friend." He said, "Why don't we go downstairs for a cup of coffee?" And I said, "Well, I haven't got time, and I'm afraid." And talk about clothes. He looked like a clown in what he was wearing. I mean, he was terrible. I thought, I don't want to go on the calf with him. And I said, "Look, I'm just writing this song," which was Every Day. I was writing the other bits to it, you know.
Yeah.
And then the band recorded it straight away. So anyway, and he said, "Well, it won't take very long." He said, "I write songs as well, but I have a break for a cup of coffee." And I said, "I've got to go." And he shouted, "Mel told me what you were like." Just like a little kid in the playground.
What a brilliant story.
I was good at blanking people.
I hope the wife got PRS for that as well.
It's what, sorry?
She got PRS for her songwriting credits.
No, my wife was never on the credits. So it's just that this was. I mean, we'd only just got married, and but you know, the John and Yoko thing, I didn't want that to happen. But I think you know, I think now she ought to be getting royalties for it. I mean, you know, joking apart, you know, because she did write.
Yeah.
You know, it's her who wrote that. But I mean, but that's as quickly as things come. You know, even my wife could do it, you know. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a great story. That is a great story. And last time we chatted as well, obviously we won't talk about the album and everything, but one more thing. I've got Rob in the studio, and he was at the Victoria Hall in 1973, was it?
Yeah, I was only 9, Jim. It was my first gig I ever went to. And,
9?
Yeah, 9. I went home deaf.
Must have scared the life out of you.
Mate, it did. I was stood on the side of the hall in a radiator, because they had big radiators back in the Victoria Hall, and we couldn't see, obviously, so me and my mate were stood on the side of this radiator, on the side of the wall, on the radiator. And I can remember, to this day, it was your birthday, I think it was, or your birthday the day after. And I remember everyone singing happy birthday to you and all that sort of stuff, and it was Noddy's a few days after. And then the other thing I remember distinctly about this gig was Noddy used to have a party piece where he'd say, right, okay, we want to, all the boys and all the girls shout, and whoever's not allowed, he's still have to take all the clothes off. And I'm sitting there as a 9-year-old thinking, oh my God, I'm not taking my clothes off. You know what I mean? That was just put the fear of God into me.
You didn't understand at 9, would you?
No, I didn't. I just thought, I've got to take my clothes off here if we're not very loud. What happened? How does that work? I'm not doing that. So, that's fantastic. But I always remember that gig for, those couple of things, really. And first one I went to, and I can always remember standing outside the dinner hall the day after. And we used to have this queue. My ears were still ringing the day after, and it was like, I was last night. You saw all your mates then. Oh, it was brilliant. Yeah, I saw SLADE last night. Fantastic. And they sang Squeeze Me, Please Me, which is number 1 a couple of weeks afterwards. New songs got coming out, because it was never, you couldn't get music then. You had to go hear it live, or it wasn't really played before it was out, was it?
No.
So it was all that sort of, those are my memories. And I just remember having this ringing in my ears getting in for a school dinner at 9 years old.
Yeah. It's in We'll Bring the House Down. Do you know the SLADE song, We'll Bring the House Down?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know that song?
Yeah.
We released it after we did the Reading Festival in 1980. And we did a tour, and we were having a real rough time at the end of the 70s. But we did the Reading Festival, and we came back big time, and we had a hit single, hit album instantly. We just did this one show. And they still talk about it down in Reading to this day, and it was a real big thing for us. And I wrote this single. I came up with this whoa, and We'll Bring the House Down, and then the lyrics. And some of the lyrics are, days later your ears are still ringing. No voice from singing and shouting it out. Days later, your ears are still ringing, which is how it was.
It was, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's quickly go back to the live show. So, the Bilston gig was a few years ago, which you did to promote therapy, and you're saying there's a DVD of this out as well. So, tell us more about that.
The DVD of therapy. The DVD of the Robin Hood gig.
Robin Hood gig in Bilston.
Yeah. Well, in with the therapy album, a couple of years after I released the therapy album, put it on the internet, we found there was a mini disc from the gig, and this was some years later. So we tarted it up a bit, and worked on the sound, and put it with the therapy album. Never thought anything else of it. But when the therapy album was re-released, not only did the therapy album itself, it's a thinking man's album, and it's got depth and width, and that's great. But the live album got as much attention as the therapy album itself, that was in free, just as a giveaway. And so many people have said, this really rocks, and so anyway, over the years, stuff's been put on by fans on the internet, and they put the audio of it with fan footage. And then just recently, my brother said, I've got this fan footage of the Robin Hood. He said, nothing's, we've seen fan footage, but nothing's been good enough to put it out commercially. I said, we don't want to put it out commercially. I'm not up for that at all.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you might do when you see it. And yes, the camera's wobbly here and there, but it was as exciting as hell. But still, I didn't think it was good enough to pull out. And then, so the record company's seen it, and they said, this is great, So my brother just recently, about 2 months ago, he said, James, I need to meet you in London. You know, we got to talk about this DVD. I said, no, I don't want it out on a DVD. It's not good enough. And he said, well, we've got a problem. You know, the record company think it's great. He said, and they've sold it to the Americans.
Oh, yeah.
The Americans. I said, how many? You know?
Yeah.
So you know, I didn't want to let them down. So I said, oh, just okay, all right, I'll say yes. But it's come out so well.
Yeah.
And the record company hadn't seen the finished article, and they've seen it now, and they're just raving over it, you know, and it's come out really well, I have to say.
Yeah, I think
Very
it's because
exciting.
people want to see you live, and that's the last performance you did, and I think it's that nostalgia as well as listening to the new album that has probably put it into the forefront for him.
Yeah, I'm actually doing on November the 5th in the afternoon. I'm doing a question and answer thing at the Robin Hood itself.
Oh yeah.
As a launch for the DVD, and it's you know, they're going to show the DVD, and then there'll be a question and answer with Paul Franks from Radio WM in the Midlands. He's going to be doing that, and it's all for charity. It's all seated as well. You know, obviously, if you've got a question and answer, you can't have people jumping up and down at the front of the stage and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's all seated, and all the money, every penny, goes to charity and to cancer research, because I've got cancer, and to Alzheimer's Society. So that's what the money's going to. You know, it's really great to think you can raise a bit of dough, you know, and do that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, well, like I say, Therapy is out on vinyl now on a black plastic circle, like back in the day. You can get it, and you can go and get the single out on November the 10th. It is up next, actually, we're going to play it, but we want to thank you very much for coming on the phone again, and best wishes with the question and answer. We're going to try come down to that on November the 5th, and good luck with the single.
All right.
It's called Smile of Elvis, but thank you very much, Jim Lee.
All right.
You take care.
Thanks very much.